Tinnitus. 10% of people have it in the UK, but only 10% of those people are actually bothered by it. So what is it, and what can we do to help you manage it? So tinnitus is defined as a ringing, a buzzing, or other internal sound that you can hear but other people can't. For some people it can be musical, other people can hear things like their heartbeat. And I'll talk to you a little bit about the types of tinnitus at the end, where it's really important that you get a little bit of extra advice from a healthcare professional or your general practitioner. So, people associate tinnitus with hearing loss, and for me it's important to note that all of the research suggests that when you have tinnitus, you've had a hearing loss. Now, that doesn't mean that you still have a hearing loss today. It could be that you had a blockage of wax, it could be that you had fluid in your middle ear, or it could be that you have a more permanent hearing loss. But we associate tinnitus with a straining to hear, with extra pressure being put onto the auditory system, making you aware of those more internal sounds. A good example of this is that if we put 100 people into a soundproof room, more than 90% of them would hear some kind of internal sound as they started to strain. So what can we do about our tinnitus? Our tinnitus affects us, it affects our sleep, it affects our lives if we build an emotional connection to it. So 90% of people with tinnitus live well, and it doesn't affect them day to day. For the 10% of people who are affected by their tinnitus, it's really important that you get some support from a healthcare professional, because there are tips, tricks and resources that we can use to help manage your progress and your living well with tinnitus. So what do those sorts of things look like? In my clinic we work around 3 areas. So initially we always look at education. Do we understand our tinnitus? Do we know why it's there? Are there extra tests and measures that we should be doing to build a complete picture of it? Because when we understand something, it's much, much easier to process. Then we look at relaxation or stress management, because tinnitus is always exacerbated by stress. We go into a flight or fight mode where we produce more adrenaline and we become more aware of things. It's almost like having a noisy neighbour that you get on with versus a noisy neighbour that you dislike. And finally, we would look at sound enrichment. So if people have a hearing loss, they can get really big benefits from correcting or improving that hearing loss through hearing aids or surgeries. If people don't have a hearing loss, then there are ways for us to look at different sounds that they can bring into the environment, and we'll talk about those a little bit more in one of the future videos. The types of tinnitus where it's really important you speak to your GP are if it is just in one ear, if it's going with your heartbeat, if it's changed significantly. That's when we need the GP to be aware of it and for it to be on your medical records, so they can consider whether it's the right time or if it's appropriate to send you to see an ENT consultant to understand the bigger picture.